Al, this is clearly a special episode of this podcast because it's a boosted version of the podcast.
Yeah, we're both boosted now.
We're both boosted. We got that 15G coursing through our veins.
Yeah, we're gonna get so tracked by Bill Gates.
It's true. We're just gonna speed through the world.
Yeah, I don't remember what the other conspiracy theories are, but yeah, we're both boosted now, so we're a little late.
There's chips and everything.
All right. I love
potato chips.
They're tasty.
Mm-hmm.
I have some Doritos.
Nice.
Yeah.
Get you some Mountain Dew to pair with that.
Oh God, no.
Hello, welcome to this week's episode of the Seasonal Anime Checkup OVA. It's a podcast where we have conversations about video games, anime, and manga. Hello, I'm Jared, joined as always by Doc Howe and Ladium.
Hello.
This is episode number 257. And apparently it's... It's been a while since we last talked about an Otome game on this very podcast.
It has been a while. Things got delayed because of COVID, and then they all decided to come out at the same time. Like,
yeah,
oh
they're
no.
just like, let's just dump it all.
I've been
Throw it all out there at
struggling.
once.
Ah,
You'll be fine.
ah. Not like these are like long games to get through or anything.
No, of course not.
Mm.
That's not the case at all.
Nope. Speedy.
Yes, we are talking about Olympia Soirée.
Olympia Soirée.
Not the first Otome game that's come out this year, but is the first one we're talking about.
Yeah, I'm still working on the other one, and then I'm working on another one at the moment. So there will be more Otome talked about at some point.
Otome on top of Otome.
Probably talked about next year because of how things lie.
Yes, that's true.
But yeah, this week Olympia Soirée.
That indeed. So you're gonna tell us all about how lewd this video game is and how there are content warnings that we should talk about from the jump.
Yeah. Actually, before I even talk about any of the other content, I will say that like this entire thing is just a giant content warning. Like there's a lot of like sexual content that I will talk about, and not all of it is consensual. And so if that is something that you don't want to hear or don't want to, that makes you uncomfortable, I do not blame you if you peace out right now, because there will be a bit of it. But I just wanted to give that fair warning. And that being said, this is the most sexual, like mainstream Otome game I've ever played in my entire life.
Which is saying something.
Yeah.
Usually they don't go this far, I would assume.
No, and like there are boobs. There are very blatant textual references to boning. Some of the art is very blatant that like, hey, this is what's happening. It is crazy. I did not expect that going in. Like I had read, this is gonna sound really bad. Are you ready for this statement?
Oh boy.
I had read on the Otome Games subreddit that this was a very controversial release and that they were surprised that it was coming out over here, period, because of how it was received in Japan. So when it came over here, I was like, oh, it can't be that bad, right? And that is not to say it is a bad game, because I won't say that. I just didn't expect it to be quite like this.
Right.
But I mean, I guess I should have thought about it, because the whole premise of this game is that you play as Olympia. You can also name her actual name. I just went with the default, which is like Byakuya. And she is the last of the women of the white from Tenyo Island. And so this entire premise of the game is that on Tengu Island, Tengu, I don't know how to say it, everybody is ruled by like a color caste system. So you have like the primary colors at the top. So like red and yellow and blue are like top tier. And then you have like a secondary tier that has things like orange. Um, and then you also have Yomi, which is underground, and none of these people are allowed to actually like see the sun and things like that. And there are people who have like a mix of colors that are undesirable or like come out brown. Um, and so they are like shunned in society. And so the whole like idea of this is that Olympia is the last of the white, and the white are the only ones who can keep the sun in the sky um, by basically like dancing as a tribute to the goddess Amaterasu. Amaterasu, yeah. Um, and so, since she's the last of the white, she kind of has to make more whites. Wow, this is sounding really terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I should have expected that there would have been quite a bit of sexual content because literally the whole premise of it is you have to make babies. So you have to find one of these fellas that you're dating to bone and make babies with. Yeah.
Take him to the baby zone.
Oh God. So I really should have known going in that it was going to be like extremely sexual, but I did not expect it to be this extent. Like I expected to be some like hints and innuendo because like that it's always in a tone like that.
Right.
This is just like, oh no, they're boning. They're going at it. Okay, wow. Like the the amount of times that she talks about like her thighs trembling, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, gal. Are you having fun? um so yeah. And I think that like you got to see some of the wild screenshots, but some of them I was also just like, I'm embarrassed to send you this. Because some of them are just like, oh my, this is like smut.
There we go.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like some of it was hot. I won't even lie. So cool, successful on that. But like some of it was just like, oh my goodness. Oh, so yeah, that's the whole premise of this. Also worth mentioning that the reason that she's the only one left of the white is because of this event that happened where somebody from the main island went over to the island with the women of the white. I'm trying to not say this in ways that sound terrible. As I say white women, I'm like, and decided that he wanted to have his way with some of them, and instead of giving into that, they all just committed suicide.
That's
all
a
of
little
them.
excessive.
All of them. Except for, 5-year-old Olympia, who was taken and raised in the house of the leader of the Yellow, who is named Doma. And Doma's kind of a harsh butthead. But since he's of the Yellow, he's one of the rulers of the island. You also have Shura of the Blue, and she is the only lady ruler. And then you have Jingin. I don't remember exactly if it was Jin or Jig, but anyway, he was of the red. And then there was also a dude that hangs out behind the curtains. It's the ultimate leader. And the only person who can talk to him is the leader of the Yellow. There are also like weird abilities like the folks of the blue have an ability called Batsu, that they essentially can just rip your soul from your body,
Cool.
right? Um,
Love getting my soul ripped out.
just lovely. Uh, and I think there are only a few people outside of the blue who can use Batsu, but the problem with that is that the blue is like, hey, what if we just do a lot of inbreeding so we can keep Batsu? But then like people just keep getting issues and dying and things. Turns out inbreeding doesn't really work very well.
Shocker.
Wow, wow. And then red was cursed until Jinga came around and was like, "Oh, hey, you guys are living on like some poisonous dirt. So if you like handle it this way, it won't kill you anymore." And they're like, "Oh, wow. Amazing." And then they didn't die anymore. Um it's also kind of a weird situation because you find out very early on that some of these people are called outsiders and that they just washed up on this island from Japan. And some of them became leaders.
As you do.
Yeah, so like Doma is an outsider. Jing is an outsider, and there's another outsider as well. But that's I'll talk about that when I get to his route. Actually, there's two more outsiders, but um, one of them's technically not an outsider. They just call him an outsider.
Well, that's just me.
Yeah. It's weird. Yeah, the whole thing. I was so confused the whole time because like, so this is like a world where Japan exists, but these people are outsiders, and it was so confusing at first until they finally explained it at the end. I'm like, oh, well, all right then. Um, but yeah, the island is surrounded by these giant whirlpools, so you can't really leave. But lots of things wash up. So like at one point, Olympia finds like a letter in a bottle from a girl in Tokyo saying like "Hello from Tokyo," and it's signed like September 2021. I'm like, whoa, wild.
Hello. From
Hello.
Tokyo.
But yeah, so they have this whole like saying that like whatever you need will wash up from the waves, and yeah, sometimes things wash up that are significant, like people.
Not people.
People, they're the outsiders from
Oh
Japan.
no.
Um, I guess the other like big grounding thing that I should explain before I like start talking more about routes is that there is a disease on the island called Haku. And
Gesundheit.
and Haku essentially just like makes your body rot while you're alive.
Yeah, fun times.
Yeah,
Who
yeah.
doesn't want to get some of that little Haku?
It's beautiful. So there's a lot of fear about Haku, and that's one reason why they're like, yeah, Olympia, you gotta make babies within like a year because we're afraid you're gonna get Haku, and we really need the sun. We kind of like having the sun around. So, um, oh, I guess another important thing to mention is that there is a situation on the island that if people from above, like people from the like main classes, like blue and yellow and red and orange and colors like that, if they sleep with people who are of lower tiers than them, they're just sentenced to death immediately.
Wilden.
Yeah, it's crazy. So the whole like color caste system thing is intense. And I was telling you when I first started playing this, I'm like, this makes me a little uncomfortable that like the women of the white are the top tier and like the very bottom tier is the black. cast.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the it's like oof, oof. Um,
Not being very subtle there.
no, no. And I think that they actually do a decent job with like how they treat it, because like the whole time that they're like using Olympia as a way to like frame this island's ways and everything, she's like, this sucks. I don't like this. I don't like this for anybody. Like, I'm allowed to pick whoever I want, and that's how it should be for everybody. And so like she's just consistently calling out how terrible this color system is. And some of your main datables also just hate the system. So at least it's like not horrifically treated. I was kind of worried going in when I was like, oh God, we have white and black here, and like, yeah.
Right.
And I will say, once I get to Kuroba's route, there is one thing very, very good that they did there that I was happy about. Um, so remind me to talk about that,
No.
because I might forget.
I will also forget.
Oh no. Okay. So I think that's like the general gist of like, this is the world that we're in. Is that all good? Does that make sense?
Sure.
Cool. Okay. Well, we are now 18-year-old Olympia, and she's like, I want to get a husband. Let's
I want to
go.
go on a soiree.
And early on, that there's a group called the Katawari that are basically like archivists and historians, but also like kind of related to the military. And Akaza is the leader of that. He is of the Red. And Akaza is basically the one who's like, oh yeah, by the way, you're 18, you really need to start looking for a husband. You've got a year to do it, and if you can't find anybody, then I will fulfill that role. And she's like, bruh, what? I hate that phrasing. Why did you say that? I'm never gonna marry you. And she just like so mad at him the whole time, and like every single route she's like, fulfill that role. So that's also a thing. But I looked online to see like what was the recommended play order, because you have to date 4 of them before you can unlock 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so you date 4, then you unlock 1, you play through his, and then you unlock the final route. So there is a very specific order that was recommended by the person who wrote the game. So I was like, all right, cool. Well, they wrote it. I guess I should follow that. That makes sense. So I started with Riku of the Blue, who is a soldier, and he guards the gate for Yomi. So he's the one who tries to make sure that nobody comes from the Yomi who's not supposed to, and nobody goes down to the Yomi who's not supposed to. Also, he is very, very dedicated to the class system, and basically tells you straight up at the beginning, like, yeah, I need to marry somebody who's going to give me beautiful babies of the blue. That's it.
Yikes.
It's like, okay, cool. So, this being my first route, I was just like, oh God.
Off to a great start.
Ugh. Yeah, I was just like, I don't want somebody who is just obsessed with this whole color thing and thinks that it's a good thing. And I will tell you straight up, Riku is your tsundere character. But because of that, he's pulling his whole like, oh, I don't like you or anything. No, no, never. And like blushing. He has a really cute blushing sprite, for the record. This route, Olympia is just like very assertive and telling him like, no, we're gonna date. Let's do this. Because she just kind of gets tired of him being like that. Which was nice for her to be like, all right, cool, this is what I want and this is what's going to happen. And I wish that we had gotten more of that in other routes, but we didn't. And yeah, Riku's route is, I don't want to say it's boring,
But it's boring.
but compared to the rest of them, it's kind of boring. Nothing really happens. Like at one point he gets like sort of banished from the blue and starts living down in Yomi. And it's hysterical because he just runs around in like socks and sandals down there and is like, all right, cool. I live here now. I'm not part of the army right now. I'm just living in the bathhouse, just chilling. It's fine. And he's trying to find somebody who is harassing Olympia. And turns out that it is this shady doctor who will keep coming up, who is missing an eyeball, and he has a mechanical eyeball instead.
Cool.
Found out that he lost it to the Haku.
Not the Haku.
The Haku. And Riku is very bummed about finding out that he was the one that was harassing her, because the doctor apparently is someone that he like owes his life to. And do you want to know why?
Did he also have the Haku?
No, Riku is actually not of the blue. He was born to a lady who was of mixed colors in Yomi, and somehow came out very, very distinctly blue. Like his hair is blue, his eyes are blue, so he's like a perfect blue. He has Batsu ability. He's like the lead Batsu user, so he can do these like sweet dances and make the bodies go turn into like shiny color rocks. And he also gives your Olympia has a little like white mouse pet named Daifuku, and Daifuku is like fat and always wants food. And at one point Riku's like, here you go, have a burger. And Daifuku's like, oh, he's a good dude. You can't be a bad dude if you're giving mice burgers. Like, come on. But anyway, yeah, so he finds out that or you find out from him, he's known all along that he is not actually a purebred blue. But that the doctor and the leader of the blue, Shura, basically saw that he was pure blue and faked that he was the son of the like previous leader of the blue. So now he is supposed to become the next leader of the blue, even though he was not originally blue.
I feel like someone would have caught on to that. Like, oh, when did this leader have another kid? That's weird. Anyways.
Well, they brought him up when he was an infant. So they basically faked it of like, oh, she had a baby, and then she died very soon after, like his wife did. So like there was really nobody who could
suspicious
argue against it. Yeah, also Shura, the leader of the blue currently, also has Haku. And it destroyed her body in certain ways, and so she is unable to have the babies. And so the weird thing about this route, besides the fact that like he was like, oh man, I'm obsessed with being the blue, bah, but then he knew all along that he wasn't. I'm like, bruh, what are you doing? The weird thing about this route is that like Shura and the doctor are siblings from what I can understand. But there's also like some weird romantic undertones there. And I'm like, ugh.
Well, it wouldn't be an Atoma game if there wasn't something weird.
Yeah, the
like
the doctor is of the violet. Yes, he's of the violet. But yeah, I was like, all right, we're just gonna ignore that. And Riku also has like the least horrible of the bad ends because his bad end is just he becomes the executioner because of his ability with Batsu, and so he just like has to murder people all the time. Well, not like that. He just pulls their souls out of their body very painfully. So he was fine actually. Like I ended up liking him once he got over his whole like I'm gonna be a racist butthead type thing. Like once he went into like I'm gonna run around with socks and sandals mode, I was like, all right, I kind of like you now. I didn't like you before, but now you're all right. Um, and he also is the one that gets the least of the sexy scenes.
No sexy scenes for him.
He gets some sexy scenes, but they're not super sexy. And also, he's the only one that Olympia, when she engages in activities with men that are her actual soulmate, which that's the whole thing is that you have to find your soulmate. Her white hair takes on a hue of whoever she's with, and all the other dudes, you get a CG of her with like full hair color of like whoever she was with, except for Riku, who only gets highlights. I was like, dude, sucks to be you. But yeah, he was fine. He's probably like my second or third favorite. He's fine. I'd say he's probably my third favorite.
Very average.
Yeah, he's very average. You know, his strong racist beginning didn't really help him much at all.
No.
So then I went to the Tokisada route, who is of the green. But he's an outsider. And he is also 17, so he's technically not allowed to get married and have babies yet, but they're like, hey, he's an outsider, so I guess we can break some of those rules. I was like, oh god, I feel really icky dating a 17-year-old. So Tokisada is an outsider. You meet him at the bathhouse in Yomi. He's a big fan of mint chocolate chip ice cream.
What?
I love mint chocolate chip ice cream, but he just mentioned.
I've never been able to have the palate for mint and chocolate together.
Oh, I love it.
Like
so
like how
much.
you are with peanut butter and chocolate. I am the same way with mint and chocolate. Like I just like
you like them separately, but you don't like them together.
Yes.
Yeah. See, it happens. I do like the ice cream, but it's weird how much he talks about it. So he has a white mouse as well. And it turns out it's Daifuku's sibling. His name is Paris. Also there's a robot girl who works at the bathhouse in Yomi. And she has the third sibling who is named Juliet. So, do you want to take a guess at what Daifuku's original name was?
Hamlet.
Yeah, exactly. It was Hamlet. No.
Mercutio.
But yeah, Daifuku went running away and ended up with Olympia and got fat. And everybody's like, yo, what are you doing? Like,
and then he's like, hamburger.
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 Hamburger. Tokusada's weird. I mean, I guess part of that's his outsider status. But like he had a lot of his story is that like he's being prepped to be the next leader of the Green. So he like hangs out a lot with these two dudes who are absolutely awful. One is of the Jade, and I can't even remember his name. And the other is named Kanan. He's of the Orange. and he basically runs the newspaper.
Are they also an idol?
No, he's awful. He's like the worst character in this game.
Well, that's rude.
And his twin brother, um, who I cannot remember the name of, it starts with a K as well, Kai something.
Kai.
We'll just call him Kai for right now. His twin brother actually ended up exhibiting full yellow traits, and so he got adopted into the yellow, so he became higher class than Kanan, and so Kanan's like, but then the brother ended up boning a girl in the Yomi, and so she got executed immediately, and because of his status, Akaza was able to get him just banned to Yomi, so he's alive, but he's branded as a criminal and has to forever build this like shrine gate to Amaterasu, like as prison labor. And actually he's the one who Olympia, I should have mentioned this at the beginning. Olympia starts a letter delivery service that she wants to deliver letters from Yomi to the surface and vice versa, so that people can actually communicate with each other after like they've been banished and all that jazz. And he's the one that inspired that, because he's like, "Hey, I want you to give this letter to my brother," and Kanan's like, "Sucks to suck." And the letter was just him asking, like, "Hey, I really want to get to the surface and like leave flowers as like a memorial to my lady." So yeah, something simple, but whatever.
Khan's like, you wanna go deliver? You wanna take this letter up here while I say, son?
So yeah, Togisada hangs out with the bad boys.
Oh heck! Do they have leather jackets?
They don't.
Well, they're failing.
And Togisada's like acting weird with you at one point because of all of that. Also, you find out at one point that like he's a Christian.
All right.
He carries around a Bible. He talks about God a lot.
Okay.
And he was from Japan in the 1600s and was a convert to Christianity. And because of that, he was beheaded. And then the next thing he knew, he washed up onto this island. And he has a giant scar across his neck that he hides with a big ruffle collar of where he was beheaded for being a Christian in the 1600s in Japan.
The persecution of the Christians once again.
I know. I was like, what is happening? How am I dating a guy who was beheaded in 1600s in Japan? How? And like the Lord that he follows, I looked it up, was like an actual guy who converted to Christianity, and like instead of committing suicide, he's like, yeah, you just got to behead me because it's against my religion to commit suicide. So
all right.
So I guess it's like following some historical truth there, but it was kind of odd that it's like, oh hey, this Christian boy you're dating who got beheaded, and also at one point you just bone.
It's not where you expect that kind of backstory to come from.
No, it's not. Togisada also has one of the worst bad ends. Like one of the worst. Because there's this part where like Kanan is able to get a hold of Olympia, and he drugs her, and so she's thinking that she's with Togisada, but he also is able to bring his brother up from Yomi and drugs him, so he thinks he's with his previous lover.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And so Kanan just has them bone each other while he watches and like leers over them. It's like, oh God.
Wasn't realize this is going to become a cuckold situation.
Well, you find out when you read the like the archives, basically, that Kanan had Haku, and that the thing that he lost was his thing.
Oh, right. He's that guy.
Yeah, that's him.
All balls, no.
Yeah, well, he doesn't have either.
No balls, no.
Nothing works down there.
He's a Ken doll.
It just all rotted off and like doesn't function anymore.
It's all just smooth down there now.
Like, how do you just get Haku on your and that's it? How?
How are you gonna pee after that?
How do you pee after that?
You gotta pee out of the butt now.
But he's just really salty because he's like, I can't marry anybody and I can't have babies and I'm ruined. And so he just does that instead and is also just a grumpy dude and does so many terrible things in all the routes.
I would like to ask someone for comment about this.
Mm-hmm.
Where is one Maxwell McDivitt?
Oh God, you called him his name. He's next to me.
Maxwell, can you confirm or deny that you are also very angry and grumpy because you have nothing down there that works?
He has stuff that works. He just doesn't have balls.
Well, he can't do what this guy wants to do.
No, he cannot make babies and he cannot bone anybody. That is correct. Max, what do you think?
I want to clarify for comment, see if he also would feel very grumpy and angry about this.
He just slow blinked at me, which means he loves me.
Okay, so I think he is the opposite. I think this guy is an outlier.
Yeah, this
and Maxwell is an alien who defies all logic and expectations.
Correct.
Yes.
And is also a good boy.
Yes, that is true as well.
And now he's standing on me, so he was asleep. And
happy to help.
He's like, you're talking to me? I'm gonna stand on you now.
Well, it's time to wake up. I'll be smoosh.
Tokisada is one of my least favorites.
Yeah, I can see why.
He might not be my least favorite, but he's one of the least favorites. And honestly, like, his hair bothered me and his whole story bothered me. And he just kept talking about God in the Bible. I'm like, God, stop. Please. It's annoying. So yeah. Also Kanan like conspired to like have him murdered at one point, which was kind of mean.
Whole lot of stuff there.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about Yosuga. Yosuga. How would you say that?
That sounds right, I guess. I mean, I can't. I'm imagining how it would be spelled, and I'm assuming that's how you would say it.
Yosuga.
But also, you probably heard these names more than I have.
Yeah, but I don't pay attention. Okay, so he's the only dude of the purple left. He's the only purple left.
Wait, hang on.
Yeah.
Question for clarification.
Okay.
We're not asking Maxwell this.
Okay.
You said earlier there was a violet.
Violet and purple are different.
That's dumb. That's very dumb.
Yes. Violet is
We're gonna take some marks off this game for this. Not knowing what colors are.
Violet is lower than purple technically. And the guy of the violet is trying to revive the purple technically.
Well, that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't, but there's more to that story.
Well, the violet should just go get violent.
So Yosuga is the last of the purple. He is
Mohicans.
Yes. He is also the guy who runs the bathhouse that I keep mentioning. He owns that. He's also kind of like the boss man of the underworld of Yomi. Like, one of the things that is so weird about his route that never came up in any other routes, and I'm like, what? Is that they're talking about how some dudes from the surface come down to Yomi and like want to make babies with some of the Yomi ladies because their babies are more robust and can potentially become like pure colors, much like Riku. And so like he was upset, understandably, that like these dudes just kept coming from the surface, and I was like, all right, cool, I'm just gonna bone you now. And they're like, wait, no.
This is a no bone zone.
Yeah, like please get consent. That is important. And they're like, I'm higher class than you, so no. So Yosuke like makes contracts that people have to sign. And I'm like, what happened to the whole like, if you bone somebody of a different class, you die? Like, where do these contracts? Where did this come from? And it's not mentioned in any other route.
I thought you said the dying thing
The dying thing.
was about if they do it, if like you're an upper person, you do it with like a lower person.
Yeah, you would both die.
But like if they're in like the upper tier, would that still count?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a dude in another route who is of the blue and bones a gal and the Yomi, and they both are persecuted and end up committing suicide.
Sucks to suck.
Yeah, so like this is the only route that these like contracts are mentioned and that like people don't die for it. I'm like, okay.
They wanted to spare you the legalese.
It was very odd. Um, but Yosuke is, I like him much better in everybody else's routes.
That's a great sign.
Because he's kind of like a goofy wingman in everybody else's routes and is always like, aha, would you like me to set up a room, a private room for you so that you can. So he's kind of just like.
Smack your lips? Oh.
He's kind of a goofy
You
dude.
can go eat some wings or something?
I mean, wings are delicious. Why wouldn't you?
In a private room.
Yeah, yeah. You don't want anybody.
I mean, he is a wingman.
He's a. He also lets Olympia know at one point because he sets up a bath for her and she just like starts taking off her clothes. He's like, don't do that in front of people who are not your soulmate. It's a bad idea. And so she remembers that a few times of like, oh no, I shouldn't just take off my clothes randomly. It's like, all right, cool.
Thanks.
Thanks
for the tip.
Yep. Yosuke also oh shoot, what is the name of that other dude? What is that other dude's name? It's based off of so much of the story is based off of like Japanese mythology, which I'm sure you're not surprised by.
Right.
So a lot of the names are based off of that. What is this dude's name? What is his name?
Joey Fingers.
Joey Fingers.
Hey.
Oh no.
I'm a Tommy here. Forget about it.
Oh my.
Gabagool.
Tsukuyomi? Yes. So Moon Dude lives under Yosuke's.
Moon Dude is my favorite Sailor Moon Crystal opening.
He lives under the bathhouse and like weird underground place where like there's a spring that they claim the body of Izanami lives in it, and that if you come in contact with the water of the spring, you will immediately contract Haku. So
don't go in the spring.
Tsukuyomi just like hangs out and lives down there and is also like the mentor of Olympia, so she like goes and talks to him a lot. Should have mentioned that way earlier, but I forgot. He's also the one that made the robot gal who runs the bathhouse with Yosuke, and she's hysterical and I love her to pieces. She has a sign on her front that says open when she's been like wound so that she's functional. And I think that's really funny. So yeah, Yosuke, he's kind of got like a like playboy persona type thing. And he does some sketchy stuff in his route that I am uncomfortable with. But so you find out that the Violet Doctor is scheming for Yosuke to essentially marry and bone Olympia so that like they can continue the bloodline of the white. Also, he just has her like hide in his bathtub so she can hear this plan. It's like, okay, I guess.
Sneaky.
Sneaky, sneaky. And he ends up taking her back to Tenyo Island. He's the first one that does that. And when you get there, he's like, oh, by the way, I found out that a woman of the white murdered a man of the purple who came here. So I'm going to get my revenge now. And she's like, what? You're going to do what now? And dude just starts like taking off her clothes on the island without asking. And he's like, yeah, I can just take whatever I want. I'm like, bro, no, you cannot.
That took a turn.
Yeah, it sucked. And then eventually he just stops, which is good. But she says to him multiple times, like, do not ever untie my ribbon without asking again. It's like, okay. So that was sketchy. I did not like that. And immediately after that, I was just like, I don't like you, period. And yet he's still not my least favorite, which is wild. But you end up finding out about this like whole backstory of what happened with the purple is that the leader of the purple, his daughter caught Haku and then didn't call a doctor or anything, and everybody in the purple ended up catching Haku, so they just set the entire purple district on fire.
Yikes.
To prevent anybody else from getting it. So Yosuga was away at the time and, was the only one that survived. And he went back to see if he could like find the bodies of his family, since he was the son of the leader of the purple. And he found his sister's body, and she had a blue, like a blue class handkerchief over her face. And she had hidden a note in a tree that they used to put like notes to each other in that said like, the blue killed me. And so Yasuka's been like plotting revenge against the blue this whole time, and like goes and talks to Shura and was like, yo, so did you kill my sister? She's like, yeah, I did. And so he gets, mad and wants to destroy the blue for destroying the purple and killing his sister. But we find out that once again, Creepy Doctor and Shura, who are siblings, but also potentially more than that, were working together, that the previous leader of the blue, who was Shura's brother, maybe, I don't remember, was just repeatedly going over and like assaulting this girl of the purple repeatedly. And so she committed suicide. And when you commit suicide, Haku spreads really, really fast.
Yikes.
And so that's part of the reason why like nobody was able to really handle the situation, was because of it spreading and her suicide. And the issue was like, oh, hey, you can't really call out a color class that's above you. Yay. So, yeah, that sucks. But he ends up like saying that he's going to reestablish the purple. I'm not really sure how he's going to reestablish the purple, because like, well, you're told up until this point that Olympia can only have girls of the white. So I don't know how he's like, oh, I'm going to remake the purple with you as my wife. It's like, bruh, doesn't work that way. Um, but he also is just like, I like my bathhouse. I'm going to stay down here and be a weirdo. He was. I'm like putting the cards down here. Like I've got their character cards, and I'm like putting them down so I can remember my rankings later. Just in case you were wondering what I'm doing with these cards. Um,
You're just playing a children's card game.
I am, and it's got a weird turn where everything's sexy and also people commit suicide. Um, all right, my favorite. You ready? Kuroba.
Yay!
Kuroba of the Black. I was real stoked to start dating him. He's a doctor who was able to essentially escape from the Yomi because he was intelligent enough to pass the entrance exams for the one university on the island and became a doctor. And so he is specifically studying how to cure Haku. He's also just like goofy as he's like super super goofy dude and hilarious, and I love him to pieces. um oh right, hold on, let's move back for a second. Do you know what Yosuke's bad endings are?
Probably bad.
Yeah. Okay, so one of them, he gets taken by the Violet Doctor, and the doctor basically tells Olympia like, okay, well, in order to save his life, you're gonna have to bone a ton of dudes and of different colors, have their babies so that I can then study these babies and see what comes out. And so she basically just becomes like,
Oh, right. Yes, I know this.
yeah. Like there's a CG that you get of her just like sitting in the bathhouse like with his pipe, and she's naked, and she like, you hear these dudes talking like, oh man, I heard if you go to the bathhouse you can like go bone Olympia, and they're like, oh, that can't be true, and then they go, and yeah, you can, but she does tell you straight up like, if I'm not satisfied I will kill you, because she has the ability to use Batsu. So that's a very bad end.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, to fun things. Back to Kuroba of the Black, who I like. Um, he's very good, and like one of the first things that he says to you, um, like when you first meet him, because he works with Akaza. He's the doctor, the Kodawari. Um, he like is making fun of Akaza and like how he approached the whole thing of like, I'll fulfill that. Um, and Kuroba basically is like, oh yeah, I've got a bed in my office here. We could just go knock it out real quick if you want to. It's like, Jesus Christ, dude. He's so delightful in everybody's routes. Like he's just goofy and fun, and I really, really like him. Um, there are very, very frustrating moments in his route that I'm like, why is this happening? And honestly, I think it's because he's so perfect that if you didn't have some kind of like stupid brain fart with Olympia happen, that like there would be no conflict whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's wonderful. He's so wonderful. Um, but Kuroba disagrees with the methods of the doctor, who was his mentor, and he like is constantly teasing Olympia about like how to get a date. He tells her at one point that the way that she should pick up a dude is that she should take her handkerchief and go and drop it in the middle of the like central square, and like if a dude picks it up, then like she should go out on a date with him. And she does that, and an old man picks it up, and he's like, oh hey, you got a date, huh? Just funny. Also turns out that the old man is of the fuchsia, And he has memories of going to Tenyo Island and being married to a woman there, which is unusual because people usually don't have those memories. And that is significant. He also claims that he's like, oh man, I really I want to have grandchildren. And so Olympia's like, well, you can be my grandpa. He's like, all right, cool. I guess I'm your grandpa then. um, which you find out if you read through the archives that he actually is. Just nobody knew it. But he is her actual grandpa. Ah, yay! So anyway, dropping the handkerchief, that's how you get a date. Kuroba's adorable. He takes you on a few dates and he like does some like forehead kisses and junk that's super cute. He like gets some rum at one point, which all right, you do you, buddy. Um what becomes so frustrating with his route is that in every other route, as soon as like they start making out a bit and her hair starts changing colors, Olympia explains immediately, like, oh hey, this happens when I like meet my soulmate and do things with them, like my hair starts changing colors. And so her and Kuroba like are on a date at the beach. And they're like hanging out in the water and they start making out and her hair starts like turning gray because of his black traits. And he's like, that's not supposed to happen. She's like, oh no, you know, it must be your eyes seeing things. And he panics. He freaks the out and just like starts avoiding you. And I'm like, you moron. In every other route, you're like, oh yeah, this happens. And then in this one, she's like, you must be seeing things. And this leads to this huge misunderstanding because he has issues of thinking that he's going to like mess her up in quotes and like make her into a person of the black. And he doesn't want to do that because she's the last of the white and he kind of wants to keep the sun around and like doesn't want her to be discriminated against. So like he panics and tries to distance himself because he's like, oh no, like my traits are transferable, that's really bad. And she won't just freaking explain to him what's going on. And so he starts like trying to push her away and like push her towards another dude, the dude of the jade. And Olympia just continues to make stupid decisions the whole route. And it leads to the dude of the jade just like sexually assaulting her
Whoa.
at one point. And there's a CG of it.
Whoa.
Yeah. And in the middle of it, he starts like coughing out blood and gets Haku. And so he gets taken to the hospital. And she goes straight to Kuroba and is like, hey, I may have been exposed to Haku and I want you to do an examination of me. And he's like, how would you have been exposed to it? What happened? She like starts explaining like, oh yeah, you know, the dude of the jade, Nagisa, that's his name, Nagisa of the jade. And Kuroba's like, well, did you sleep with him? And Olympia, because she's dumb as in this round, is like, yeah.
What?
And he freaks out because he's like in love with her, you know? Like, why would you do that? Why would you give yourself to him? Why would you do any of that? And starts getting like really upset with her and possessive and strange. And then she's like, oh, never mind, I lied to you. And he's just like, why? Like literally 5 minutes later, she's like, yeah, I lied to you, I didn't actually sleep with him.
That's real messed up.
It's so messed up. I'm like, why are you playing mind games with this dude? Like, that's so unnecessary. And you find out that the whole issue with him is that there are two cures in quotation marks for Haku. One has a 50% chance of succeeding, and you will keep your color traits. The other has a 90% chance of curing you, but there's a potential that you take on black traits. And if you take on black traits, then you get banished to the Yomi. So when she started taking on the black traits from making out with him, he was afraid, like, oh God, like I'm like, it's the same thing that like this cure for Haku was derived from like someone from the black's blood. And so if I am with her, I'm going to just change her. So that's why he freaked out in the first place. And she could have just explained it like she did to everybody else, but she didn't. Which is a pain in the butt.
Just a smidge.
Yeah. So, there's also an option here of they have a conversation of like, well, I could try and cure him, or we could just let him die for like sexually assaulting you. And you have to choose to cure him, which I'm like, this feels uncomfy. Because if you don't choose to cure him, then Kuroba immediately gets Haku and dies, and Olympia just chills out in her little house with his skull.
Oh yeah, the skull.
The skull. And it's like, yeah, it still smells like your lab coat. I'm like, what is going on? Wild. But yeah, she just chills with his skull. But if you do choose to cure the dude, which then you get more of the story and find out that Kuroba was originally the son of the previous leader of the Yellow. So he would have been the next leader of the Yellow instead of Doma. But he was the first person that was tested with the 90% medicine, and obviously took on the black trait, so he got banished to Yomi as an infant. But they like kept track of him because he was the first one to use that medicine, which is partially why he got into the university, because they were like, oh, you know, we want to see if he had any negative effects. And once he became a doctor, he like found his records and was like, well, this is up. All right. And Doma tells him at one point, like, well, I can reinstate you as the Yellow. Like, you could be the leader after me. I don't care. You marry her, go back to being Yellow, even though you have the black traits. That'd be fine. And this is where I was going to tell you that I thought that it was a good thing. He declines because he's like, no, like, I am of the black. This is who I am. I don't need that anymore. I don't need to be of the Yellow. They abandoned me. And I was like, good. Because I was worried that once I found out this, that he was going to be like, oh, yes, well, I'm just going to go back and be of the Yellow and be a leader and, you know, ignore this whole thing of being the black. And he's just like, nah, that. Like, yes. I was so worried. But no, he's a good boy. I liked him a lot. And like part of the reason why he was so dedicated to like curing Haku is he says that his first love contracted it, and that he was never able to marry her because of that, which it sounded like they were like kids when this happened.
Mm-hmm.
But he has like a little teddy bear that he keeps on his bag that she gave him. I was like, oh, that's really cute. But yeah, I like him a lot, and he's so good. And Olympia is so bad in this route. She's so terrible. And it makes me really, really mad because he deserves so much better than like, yeah, well, I slept with him. What are you gonna do about it? It's like, girl, he just assaulted you. And you're gonna come back here and play mind games with the dude who actually gives a shit about you. What are you doing? Stupid decisions. Also, in one of his bad ends, it doesn't make any sense. It has no explanation. It has no like. There's no indication that this would happen ever. But he just like Nagisa, the Jade guy, comes up and is like, "Well, I'm gonna say that we're gonna have Kuroda die. We're gonna execute him, and then you're gonna be my wife,
My
and
wife.
my wife. Also, parts of my face are missing because of the Haku now, but it's fine. Um, and Kuroba just comes up and is like, "No, that's not gonna happen," and stabs Olympia, and then murders himself, which I guess is called suicide. But like there's no indication whatsoever in any of his route in any of it that would be a thing that he would do, and I'm like, why is this happening? This is stupid. So like the skull ending was pretty metal. This ending sucked, and the whole time I was just mad at Olympia because I'm like, this dude is delightful and you don't deserve him, period. So that's our 4 that we did originally. Then you get to do the Himika route, who is the Undertaker, and he looks like an infant, which is very upsetting. He's very young looking. Also wears like a skirt and thigh highs, which like yeah, good for him. He carries around a skull with a hat. I showed you that pretty early on.
Mm-hmm. Another skull man.
Yeah, another skull man. So he's the one that like he can also use Batsu and just rip souls from bodies. And he's also like is dealing with Haku a lot. So this is where you really start getting some craziness. Some big craziness. So Himika originally is I'm trying to think of the best way to word it. He hates himself, and he's also obsessed with Olympia, like completely obsessed, and like immediately as soon as he meets her, is like, I'm in love with you.
It's a bit excessive.
It's excessive. And he is obviously very socially deficient, I think is a good way to put it. And so like Olympia is really having to do some of the legwork here and trying to figure out like, how do I approach this human? And honestly, I'll be real with you, this route is less about romance and more like, let's just do a plot dump. But remember I was telling you about the dude from the Blue earlier who committed suicide with his gal? That's part of how you end up like bonding with Himika, is that you're looking for them and you find their bodies. And people who commit suicide on this island have to be cremated and then put into the ocean. They can't be treated like anybody else who dies. And so Himika like takes you out, and like you guys spread their ashes out in the water and make a little like flower wreath for them and put it out. And you bond, and he lives on a part of the island called Corpse Beach.
Cool.
Yeah. In his little house that has a bunch of animal bones in it.
Weird.
And that's all he has in there is animal bones.
Weirder.
Yeah. And he really likes to feed you like fruit with his fingers, which is weird. So yeah, Himika is interesting, and he tells you straight up early on. I remember what the other guy's name is. The guy behind the curtain that the yellow guy can talk to, that was the last like outsider. His name is Hiroko, Lord Hiroko. And Himika's like, oh yeah, I know Hiroko. He just kind of wanders now, like he's not behind the curtains anymore, but I know him. he's real. And I'm like, hmm, is he now? Uh, yeah, it turns out that Himika is Hiriko, and he's a god.
Cool.
You're dating a god. Who is the offspring of Izanami and Izanagi,
Mm-hmm.
but he was born like shapeless
Same.
and was like sent out onto like a reed boat, and eventually he was given the body that you see in the game by the Tsukiyomi, um much like the doll, the like robot gal. He's given this kind of body
Mm-hmm.
since he was shapeless and, as he calls it, hideous. Um, yeah, it's wild. For one, like Himika the whole time is like, I've made a mistake by doing this whole color thing. I was really excited about Amaterasu coming back to life, and I really wanted her to see a full rainbow. Yikes. I kind of made a mistake. Oh, also, you're probably gonna reincarnate as Amaterasu. Cool.
Cool.
Um, and also, this is the second world. I created this world because in the first world, what Susanoo, the you know, Japanese god,
Mm-hmm.
um, who is the sibling of Amaterasu technically, but also like apparently he like made an advance on her in this story and she said no, and so he killed her, and so the sun was gone in world 1. Um and so Hibika's like, "Oh, that's bad. I don't like this." So he made world 2 and was trying to make it so that Amaterasu could then be revived. Yes. Um it's a lot. And so I realized at this point, and it comes to light quite a bit more in the next route, that the world 1 is Japan and like current times and all that, but it currently does not have a sun, so it like doesn't really exist. But there's kind of like a weird time warpy thing going on there, that like people and objects can be brought over from world 1 into world 2, which is where they're washing up on the beach and why we have a guy from the 1600s who is a Christian and also beheaded. um so yeah, it was very confusing, that whole thing. um and Himika like sacrifices himself at one point to like save Olympia. um but Amaterasu is like, "Oh, hey, that was a real cool thing of you. Like, do you want to be a real person? Because you could do that. I could help you." And so she just like gives part of herself to him, and he actually like becomes a person. The first thing that he does, and I shit you not, first thing that he does is bite himself on the wrist so hard that he bleeds to prove that he's a person.
You know, you gotta make sure you feel pain. Then you're
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I'm real.
Yeah. But then he's also like, aha, this means that I can now be your husband and there can be babies because I have functional junk now.
We can go to the bone zone.
And they do. Um, he also has one of the worst bad ends. It's insane. So there is this kid, um, that I don't remember the name of, but he sells the newspapers, and absolutely hates people from the surface because he says that people from the surface come down and like exploit the people in Yomi, which is not like he's not wrong. But he thinks that everybody's like that. And at one point, he just like hears a voice and is kind of like suicidal and jumps into the spring that I was telling you about where Izanami lives that's supposed to give you Haku immediately. And is kind of possessed by Izanami, who wants to murder Olympia because she doesn't want the white to exist anymore.
All right.
Yeah. Also the kid he's the current executioner. So he's the one that is just constantly murdering people, and he goes on a murdering spree and just kills a bunch of people, which is not cool. But his bad end, Himika's bad end, one of them is that Kanan, once again, because Kanan's always involved, Kanan is like, Olympia is unconscious forever, and I don't remember why. But he's like, hey, kid, how about you just have your way with her? And this is like a teenage boy, like maybe like 14. And like, there's a CG of that. Yeah. And Kanan, once again, just wants to watch. This dude's
Yep.
Yeah, he's like in every single ending of just like, I'm gonna be a butthole. I will say one good thing about this this entire story, besides it being a plot dump and there not being a whole lot of like real romance with this weird kid, Himika, who's a god, is there is this moment at Corpse Beach where you run into Riku. And he was like, hey, so I hear that people who commit suicide are cremated and like put out into the ocean. So like my friend who was of the blue, is that what happened to him? And like she explains like, yes, this is what happened. We put them out together and we put them with a flower wreath. And he's like, okay, good. They were together when they went. And so he was like really relieved. I'm like, see, he's not all about that pure blue stuff. He was really happy that they went out together, even though he's sad that his friend, committed suicide. So it was good. Good little Riku moment outside of his route. Which then brings us to the end with Akaza of the Red, who said that he would fulfill the need to be her husband if necessary, which she hated. He's delightful. He's very delightful. I like him a lot. He's an archivist. So, if you ever wanted to like get down and dirty with an archivist, here's your game. And so this brings up the whole like red curse thing a lot. And people get real mad about them being together, even though like the whole game everybody's like, oh yeah, you should just marry Akaza. Like he's of good standing, he's a good dude. And she's like, no, never, no. And then this one, she's like, this is the route where she becomes tsundere, because the whole time she's like, no, I'll never date a guy like that. Never. But he's kind of hot though. No. So like the whole time she's just super annoying about it. Because he's super nice to her the whole time. Like he's been trying very hard to, like, he's the one that petitions to save people from being executed. He's sent out, I think he said, over 60 petitions to save people. He went out of his way to help her do this letter service, even though that could get him in a lot of trouble. There's something else that he did that was like a bending of the rules. He got her the pass to go into Yomi, and he said like, this should have taken 2 months, but I kind of like broke the rules and got it for you immediately. So like he was really, really trying hard to like make her happy and do stuff that would be beneficial to the island. She's like, man, he's terrible. But he like takes you fishing at one point, which is nice. He also takes you back to your home island, Tenyo Island. He is the second dude that takes you back there. Does not try to sexually assault you there, at least. Um, he's more just like, hey, I thought you would like to come back here because you haven't been back here since like 13 years ago, and I know that that means a lot to you. So, that's a really nice thing to do. He like proposes to you with these really pretty like shell necklace things. Overall, just a good dude that she's just like me. The problem is that the the curse of the red is because the after Susanoo like murdered Amaterasu and killed the sun, he went and committed suicide, and where he died became the like poisoned land of the red. So the whole assertion here is that the people of the red are part of Susanoo, and so that's their curse. And a lot of people take that very seriously. Also, he has a katana that washed up that was not at all like rusted or anything, but when he first picked it up and took it out of its sheath, it's just covered in blood.
Oops.
Yep. Oops, all blood. Turns out that is the sword that Susanoo technically killed Amaterasu with. And so, whenever you go and talk to Tsukiyomi, her little weird mentor man, he's constantly like, no, you can't date that guy. He's bad. And she just keeps saying, like, bruh, what? He seems fine. What are you doing? Everything just kind of like blows up though. Because you find out that like, yeah, Himika was the one who made the second world and made this like false sun that the women of the white have to praise in order to make survive, and the women of the white have to keep mating with other colors so that they can make a strong pact with the sun. Is kind of weird. Tsukiyomi also made the moon by ripping out his own eyeball, you know, as you do.
I always just rip out my eyeball.
Yeah, well, you remember that I like showed you a picture of this guy. He's got like the piece of an eyeball like on his hair. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's this guy. Also, he just has a doll of Amaterasu like in his hands, and I didn't realize who it was until like towards the end of the game. I was like, oh, hey, that's who that is. How about that? Um, so this is the route that it really becomes an issue that they're like, ah, yes, when you turned 18, you were supposed to reincarnate into Amaterasu and you would lose all of your memories and personality and just become her again. And it would go back to World 1. And she does not want that because obviously, like, Olympia's kind of liking living in her own body. And so there are several people who are trying to make that happen, one of which was Himika. Tsukiyomi's like, no, I don't think that we're going to let that happen. I'm going to take this mirror that's broken, that was broken when Susanoo killed her, and I'm just going to hide it. It's fine. It's fine. You'll never find it. And they feel like the mirror is part of what is needed to revive her. Meanwhile, the sun just goes away. She can't do any kind of prayer anymore to make it come back. So that's bad. Just a smidge.
Just a smidge. Need that sun to see.
Yeah, well, and crops and all that jazz too.
Yeah, that's not as important.
But yeah, there are many people who are just like running into each other and stuff because they're so used to having the sun and don't know what to do. And people in Yomi are like, we never seen the sun, so we don't know what's going on. so they put out like a bounty of like, hey, let's find this mirror, guys, yay. And so Olympia decides, hey, I'm gonna go find these pieces. I'm sure I can do it. And so she goes back to Tenyo Island and dives into the spring there, which is where like Amaratu's supposed to technically be. Um and she ends up having like a positive memory about her parents. It's like, huh, okay. Good things about my parents. Yay. Um and she gets a vision of, oh, she also finds half of the mirror. She gets a vision that the other half is in water. And she's like, oh, I know where he put it. He dropped it in the other spring where Izanami is, that you get Haku as soon as you drop in. All right, well, guess I just gotta go do that then. And you find out that like the robot gal has been like trying to dive in there and get it because she can't get Haku and it's not working. And she's very frustrated, which is super sad. And Olympia is like, all right, well, peace out. I'm going in. So she jumps into the Haku spring, has another vision of her parents, but this time it is a vision of what happened after, like during the Red Calamity, where all the women of the White committed suicide, and so the previous leader of the Yellow was the guy who went over there and was saying that he was like going to have a woman of the White, and it was specifically going to be Olympia's mom. And she said, you know, nope, I have a husband. I'm not interested in you. And he ends up killing her, which then triggers everybody else to kill themselves. But then he just kind of like nopes out and leaves because yikes. But Olympia is okay. She's unconscious and covered in blood, but you finally see her dad because it's been this big mystery of like, who is Olympia's dad? Turns out it's Doma, the guy who's been raising her all along. Who would have seen that one coming? He just, you know, is emotionally constipated and doesn't know how to handle it. But he was an outsider who washed up on that island, so that's why he was allowed on the island, whereas normal guys are not allowed to live there. And so he took her in and raised her, and like the whole time that Akaza finds all this out, he's like, yeah, all right, well, this makes a lot of sense. You take after your dad in a lot of ways. But yeah, so Doma is her dad, and they actually have like some moments later, which is nice. But she finds the other half of the mirror and is trying to figure out like what's gonna happen now. Oh, also, I have Haku and my body is physically falling apart.
Oops.
Oops. So Akaza is like talking to her the whole time. Like pieces of her body are just falling apart. She's trying to talk to him and like her face is falling off. And depending on which ending you get, with the bad ending, she's falling apart and keeps asking like, please just kill me, please kill me, please kill me. And you have Susanoo and Amaterasu part 2, where he just uses the katana and stabs her and kills her. Oops. In the good ending, as she's falling apart, he's like, I love you, I still love you. She's like, you have weird taste, dude, like I'm falling apart. And he's like, no, I love you no matter what. I love you. I love you. It's fine. He's like smooching her like rotting body. And Amaterasu shows up and is like, hey, so
Hey, what's up?
seems like there's an issue here, huh? Do you want to not have all this happen? Do you want to be alive and like have a world that makes sense?
Nah, I'm not really feeling it.
Olympia's like, that would actually be kind of cool. I'd appreciate that. And so Amaterasu is able to like merge World 1 and World 2 together somehow, and it's kind of unclear how she does that.
Just smushes them together.
Well, all of the colors from the gate that the prisoners have been building. That it's like this big multicolored, like Shinto gate type thing. All of that just goes away, and there's like rainbow rain that happens, and like the worlds are merged. And Olympia is still Olympia. She's not Amaterasu. And everybody is okay for the most part. And now they can actually leave the island. And so like Olympia at one point like writes a letter back to the girl who did her like bottle in the ocean. And it's like, hey, I live on Tingo Island and you should come see it sometime. The girl's like, I don't know where that is. That's weird.
Who are you?
But yeah, so everybody is happy and there's no more issue with Amaterasu and Susanoo and Izanami and it's all good now.
They all lived happily ever after.
So I have my ranking here of the dudes. So we have Kuroba, then we have Akaza, then we have Riku, Yosuga, Himika, Tokisada. That's my official ranking of the dudes. Sorry, the whole like Christianity thing really killed it for me. But yeah, there was a lot of boning in this game. Like a lot. Everybody had boning in their routes. Riku's was like the most PG-13. But everybody had boning, and it was good. It wasn't like, well, we'll talk about ranking, but it wasn't what I expected at all. And I did really enjoy the fact that there was so much like mythology just sprinkled throughout it. Like that was super fun, even if some of it was kind of weird. She also just like gets a picture book at one point that's like, here's the myth about Izanami and Izanagi. And I'm like, oh, hey, I know this story. Let's talk about it. Yeah, it goes to get her dead body from Yomi. And oh no, she's rotted. I'm not supposed to look back. Why did I look back?
Oh no.
Oh no. So that's the gist of Olympia Soirée. What do you think?
It's very mythological and very lewd.
Yes, I agree.
Those are my takes.
All right.
Well, with all that out of the way, there's only one thing left to do.
Okay.
Let's put it on Al's official ranking of Otome.
First, we need to address there is a certain game that is going to have to change ranks, which is Mr. Love Queen's Choice.
Yes. Also, I want to say the last time we opened up and edited this list, over a year ago.
Over a year ago. Rip. A lot has happened with Mr. Love.
Yes.
Since this last ranking. And it has negatively impacted my perception of the game. And so we're going to have to preemptively knock that down from number 5. Where are we going to put this?
I mean, that's up to you. That's your decision.
I really liked the characters, but because of the bull that happened with it, like I have a really sour taste in my mouth from it.
Right.
So
You're thinking?
Yeah.
Big thinking.
I would put it above Love Letter from Thief X.
Oof.
Yeah. It's really had a negative impact on how I feel about this game. Like every time I see it now, I'm just like, I have bad feelings about you. So that's a big knockdown from number 5.
Vroom.
Thanks, China.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a thing we had to address. Now we can do the official ranking of Olympia Soirée.
Yes. All right. Well, we have 21 options on this list. And we're going to go from bottom to top as we usually do.
Yes.
to find out where this ranks on your ranking of Otome.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a good idea of where this is going to be?
I'm looking right now trying to figure out where it's going to be. I think I know.
But you don't know.
I don't know exactly yet. I have a gist of where it's gonna land, but I haven't figured out exactly where it's gonna go. And I'll be real with you, a big part of why this is gonna be as high as it's gonna be is because I love Kuroba so much. Even though he was done dirty because she was awful to him.
Mm-hmm. All right, well.
Okay, let's do it.
Definitely worse than the KFC game.
No.
22. There we go.
No.
Better than Amnesia.
Better than Amnesia.
Better than Hakuoki.
Better than Hakuoki.
Better than Love Letter from Thief X.
Much better than Love Letter from Thief X.
Better than Mr. Love.
Yes.
Better than Joestar Struck.
Yes.
Better than Psychedelic Out the Ashen Hawk.
Yes.
Better than Howtiful Boyfriend Holiday Star.
Yes.
Better than Cafe Enchanté.
Yes.
Better than Bad Apple Wars.
Yes.
Better than Period Cube.
Yes.
Better than Psychedelica the Black Butterfly.
Yes.
Better than Color Cross Malice Unlimited.
Yes.
Better than Mystic Messenger.
Yes.
Better than Code Realize Wintertide Miracles.
This is where I'm starting to wonder.
I mean, if anything, we already have a definitive top 10 entry.
Yeah, it's definitively in the top 10. Yay, good job. I would say yes, it is better than Wintertide Miracles.
Okay. Better than Hautiful Boyfriend.
Yes.
Better than Pia Fiore, Faded Memories.
I think this might be where it makes its match because, like, you can't really beat the fact that you have to bone for the body of Christ, really.
True. Cannot break the top 5.
I don't think it can break the top 5, even though it had some real sexy moments. I don't think it can do it.
Well, there you go. Olympia Soirée slots in at number 6.
Mm-hmm.
Just outside the top 5.
It's not
top 5, of course.
That's not bad.
Pure Fiore, Color Cross Malice, Code Realize, Future Blessing, Seven Scarlet, and Code Realize, Guardian of Rebirth as the number 1 entry on Al's official ranking of Otome. So there you go. We are ranked.
We have ranked. Like I said, it's not a bad showing to be number 6.
No, sirree, not indeed.
And I've mentioned elsewhere to people that, like, Kuroba is kind of top tier for me at this point. Like, I've got some top tier dudes that I'm, like, consistently thinking about in Otome. One of them will always be Victor Frankenstein because he's delightful and amazing. And, like, yes. Another will always be Toa from Seven Scarlet because he's just so cute. And also, like, his whole, like, I keep cat treats thing in my jacket's hysterical. But Kuroba's really, really good. So he's, like, somebody that I've been thinking about a lot, like, even after I finished his route and since I've finished his route. So that says something.
That does.
He's a good dude. They did him dirty, but he's a good dude.
Well, that's going to wrap up this episode then. So, if you would like more from us, head on over to seasonalanimecheckup.com or sac.cool, where you can find past episodes of this podcast and other podcasts like Jared and Now Watch. You also find columns and reviews on the site as well. If you'd like more from Ann Ladium, go to annladium.com. She's got columns and reviews. You can watch her play games on Twitch at twitch.tv/MEYDALENNA.
One day I will finish Bust of Fellows.
One day. The year-long playthrough will continue.
It's not going to be a year long. Once you finish the common route, things will go faster. You know it will.
You can follow us on Twitter and TikTok at Anime Checkup. You can buy our books, One Shiny Moment, A Critical Analysis of Love, Life, Sunshine, and Hot Tubs and Pac-Man on Amazon.com. And you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/SACOVA. Buy us a slice of pizza, get access to unedited versions of the podcast early, and a whole wealth of bonus content as well. Ralph Buddy.
Big yawn.
Next week, we'll
Bebop.
be discussing. We're gonna go to space. Talk about that live action cowboy Bebop.
Bebop.
And then our schedule basically starts to lock in a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
It's just dependent on how we want to do things. Because we will have 3 episodes remaining in December after next week.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, do we want to do an episode after Bebop and then do our usual 3? Or do we want to just jump into the usual 3 afterwards? Because we'll have the 11th, the 18th, and Christmas.
Oh.
And then New Year's Day will be the following week after that.
Whoa.
So that is a question that we will have to figure out.
Yes.
But we will have our usual 2022 preview episode. We'll have our Christmas episode, and then we'll wrap things up with Game of the Year.
Mm-hmm. If you have any Christmas recommendations, hit us.
Mm-hmm. Like, just punch us straight in the face.
Please, just directly in the face.
So there you go. That's our tentative schedule for now. We don't know if we're gonna do something in between preview and Bebop or not.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll figure that out and reconvene.
Yes.